This winter, James Cameron is taking moviegoers back to planet Pandora with Avatar: Fire and Ash, the third entry in his magnum opus sci-fi saga. While the extraordinary creatures, eye-popping action sequences, and general cinematic spectacle of these films is unforgettable, it's easy for some of the finer plot points to get lost in the shuffle. So here's a quick crash course in everything that happened in Avatar and Avatar: The Way of Water. Avatar opens in the year 2148 on Jake Sully, a Marine veteran who lost the use of his legs in combat but still has plenty of fight in him. A couple suits tell him his twin brother Tommy is dead and asks if he wants Tommy's old job, something he's qualified for simply on the basis that they're basically the same guy genetically. Oh, and you're not crazy for not remembering these scenes on Earth. Those were cut for the theatrical release, but were part of the extended cut on the collector's edition Blu-ray, which we'll be pulling from periodically for this recap, just to cover our bases.
If it ain't raining, we ain't training.
Anyway, 6 years later, Jake awakens from cryosleep and lands on the exoplanet of Pandora, where the powerful Resources Development Administration has set up a mining operation. Though Pandora is very similar to Earth in many ways, it has an atmosphere that is fatal to humans if they try to breathe it for more than a few minutes.
Back on Earth, these guys were army dogs, Marines, fighting for freedom.
Jake gets a safety briefing from one Colonel Miles Quaritch, the ranking officer of the RDA's military presence on Pandora, SecOps. Quaritch is not a fan of the planet or anything on it, especially the Na'vi, the indigenous race of humanoids that lives there.
As head of security, it is my job to keep you alive. I will not succeed.
Though Jake's military background would make him more inclined to fall in line with SecOps, he's there on Pandora to take part in the Avatar program. What is an avatar?
Only the Avatar, master of all four elements.
You probably didn't ask because you've seen this movie. Well, it's a genetically engineered hybrid of human and Na'vi, which can be remotely controlled by the human whose DNA it's grown from. So as Tommy's identical twin, Jake is the ideal candidate to control his brother's avatar. But as for doing Tommy's job, that's another story.
Guys, whoa.
By the numbers.
Jake,
listen
to me. You're not used to your avatar body.
This is dangerous.
This is great.
Jake, come on.
Jake meets the key scientists of the Avatar program. There's Max Patel, who's been on Pandora a while, xenoanthropologist Norm Spellman, the other new recruit alongside Jake, who's done extensive research on Na'vi culture and is almost fluent in the language, and Dr. Grace Augustine, the head of the program, who is a little bit pissed off that instead of Tommy Sully, who had a PhD and 3 years of training for this gig, she's stuck with Jake, who the RDA literally picked up off the street. However, Parker Selfridge, corporate administrator for the RDA, thinks Jake will be just as useful as security detail for the space nerds. The point of the Avatar program, he reminds Grace, is less for the sake of scientific research and more to earn the trust of the Na'vi, something that hasn't been going all that well.
Relations with the indigenous are only getting worse.
Yeah, that tends to happen when you use machine guns on them.
And why is the RDA on Pandora in the first place? Unobtanium, a super rare mineral found in great quantities on Pandora that goes for $20 million a kilogram.
That's the only reason. It's what pays for the whole party. It's what pays for your science.
And hey, before you roll your eyes because the name Unobtanium sounds stupid, friendly reminder that it's a term engineers have been using as a stand-in for hard-to-get material since as far back as the 1950s when titanium was in short supply for aeronautical use during the Cold War. Also, real scientists have given things way dumber names, like naming a gene after Sonic the Hedgehog, a sea sponge after SpongeBob, or calling a celestial body Gomez's hamburger when it quite clearly looks more like a hot dog. Plus, it's just fun to say Unobtanium. Just say it out loud for me. Unobtanium. It feels good, doesn't it? Anyway, Jake gets to take his new Na'vi body for a spin, happy to be on his feet for the first time in years, and impresses Grace with how quickly he's getting the hang of it.
Motor control's looking good.
After the avatars are put in sleep mode, literally, Jake heads to the hangar where he meets Trudy, the Avatar project's pilot, who seems cool, and has chats with Quaritch, who is definitely not cool. Quaritch informs Jake that while he might officially be part of Grace's team, he's also expected to report any and all intel on the Na'vi that could give the RDA's forces a tactical advantage. In return, Quaritch will see about getting Jake approved for a procedure that would let him walk again.
You get me what I need, I'll see to it you get your legs back when you rotate home. Your real legs.
Jake and company venture out into the jungle to do some experiments on Pandora's deeply interconnected ecosystem, Grace's main area of study. After stopping by the abandoned schoolhouse where Grace had previously been teaching Na'vi children English and introducing them to great cultural works like the Lorax, foreshadowing anyone? Jake notices bullet holes, which may have something to do with why the Na'vi aren't so friendly with the humans lately. From there, Jake's first day on the job doesn't go so great. After getting in a shouting match with a charging hammerhead Titanothere, he attracts the attention of a Thanator, which chases him off a waterfall. Jake fends for himself in the woods well enough, but after night falls, a pack of viper wolves descend on him. He kills one of them, but is seriously outnumbered, at least until Neytiri, the Na'vi warrior who's been quietly following this whole time, steps in and scares the rest off. As you might have guessed from Neytiri's perfect English, she's spent some time with humans, but clearly isn't a fan. However, when a whole swarm of wood sprites lands on Jake, she thinks that maybe there's something special about him. Neytiri brings Jake home to her village, where he meets her mother Moat, the Omaticaya clan's spiritual leader, her father Etukan, who's the clan chief, as well as their strongest warrior and Neytiri's betrothed, Sute, who's next in line to be chief and really not a fan of Jake. Moat declares the wood sprite behavior to be a sign from Ewa, the deity that the Na'vi worship, which may or may not be the consciousness of the entire planet's ecosystem. More on that later. And so Neytiri is tasked with teaching Jake the Na'vi customs as well as how not to die in the jungle. Jake logs off from his Na'vi body and lets his human colleagues know that he's been accepted by the tribe. Grace is thrilled about this for the anthropological implications, and Quaritch is equally pleased because that means they have an inside man with the Na'vi. Selfridge explains the home tree, the Omatikaya's ancestral village, happens to be growing on top of a massive deposit of unobtanium.
I mean, look at all that cheddar.
He tells Jake he's got 3 months to convince the Omaticaya to vacate the premises before the RDA rolls in with bulldozers.
You got 3 months. That's when the dozers get there.
From there, Jake's Na'vi training begins. He learns how to use a bow and arrow and not fall out of trees quite so much, and also how to ride some of the wildlife. Na'vi have an appendage growing out of their head called a kuru that they can use to bond with other living things, like a dire horse, which Jake figures out how to ride, but he's not quite ready for his own Ikron, which, unlike a dire horse, bonds with its rider for life. Back at the base, Jake gives Quaritch some intel on the DL, but Grace catches on and has the whole Avatar project pull up stakes and relocate to a place called the Hallelujah Mountains, which float in midair because of magnets or something. But the magnets also make human navigation instruments go haywire, making them very dangerous for air travel.
We're in the flux vortex.
VFR from here on.
Or at least air travel by mechanical means. Jake's final Na'vi test is to get airborne by taming his own Ikron, which he passes with flying colors. Mostly teal and indigo, but a splash of pink and yellow too.
Hey!
While he's out cruising around with Neytiri, Jake narrowly avoids getting eaten by a great Leonopteryx, or as the Na'vi call it, Toruk. Later, Neytiri tells Jake that it's not impossible to ride one of these things, but it's a feat that hasn't been achieved in several generations. She's descended from one of the 5 Na'vi in history to earn the title Turuk Makto, or Rider of Last Shadow, by actually bonding with one successfully.
Turuk Makto was mighty. He brought the clans together in a time of great sorrow.
It's at this point that Jake realizes he's pretty much been blue-pilled and that time spent in his avatar body seems more like reality than the one he was born with. Unfortunate timing because Quaritch tells him that he's ready to terminate the mission and send Jake back to Earth, but hey, great news, he's arranged for Jake to get the use of his legs back as a reward for getting him some valuable intel about the Na'vi, specifically the location of their sacred Tree of Souls, which he plans to use as leverage to make them vacate their home tree. Jake tells Quaritch he's about to become a member of the Omaticaya clan officially, and once he is, he can convince them to leave peacefully. Quaritch agrees to give him a little more time.
Well, then you better get it done, Corporal.
After completing his rite of passage, Jake scampers off with Neytiri to the Tree of Voices, a different sacred tree that allows them to form a neural link with the memories of the dead. And it's also apparently a great hookup spot, so this is sort of like the Na'vi equivalent of cybering with somebody you met online, or maybe making out in a graveyard like a couple of goth teenagers. After a passionate night of seeing each other in the biblical sense and dozing off, Jake and Neytiri are awoken by a different kind of dozing, bulldozing. At least Neytiri is, as Jake is AFK tending to his human body's needs. Thankfully, he logs back in just in time to avoid getting smushed, but not in time to save the Tree of Voices from getting uprooted.
Wake up! Jake! Wake up!
Between getting caught on camera attacking the bulldozer's security cameras and vlogging about how the Na'vi won't abandon the home tree at any cost, it becomes clear to Quaritch that Jake is no longer of any use to him, and it becomes clear to Jake that the RDA deliberately bulldozed the sacred site to antagonize the Na'vi into attacking, creating a pretext to attack the home tree.
It'll be humane. More or less.
Jake and Grace are given one last chance to convince the Na'vi to evacuate, and Jake comes clean about how he'd been spying for the humans. This doesn't exactly go down how he'd hoped it would, but before anything can come of that, Quaritch launches his assault on the home tree, which goes down exactly as he'd hoped. During the attack, Moat frees Jake and Grace's avatars, and the Metkayina clan retreats, but also suffers some major casualties, including Neytiri's father, Tukan. Back at the base, Jake, Grace, and the rest of the Avatar gang are locked up, but their faithful pilot Trudy, who deserted her post in disgust during the attack on the home tree,
I didn't sign up for this.
busts them out, along with their mobile lab. While escaping, Grace catches one of Quaritch's bullets and is not long for this world.
I'm a scientist, remember. I don't believe in fairy tales.
Jake reconnects with his avatar and smooths things over with the clan in the most logical and straightforward way imaginable. He tames the giant killer alien dragon and then crashes a Na'vi prayer ceremony riding on its back. After scaring the shit out of everyone, they realize that this means he is the next Turok Makto, so when he asks Sute, the new chief, to rally nearby clans for war, he listens.
I will fly with you.
While thousands of Na'vi plans gather nearby, Jake presents Grace's bodies, human and Na'vi, to the Tree of Souls, and he also prays to Eywa to look into Grace's memories of Earth. The planetary deity historically doesn't pick sides, but Jake figures a glimpse at what humans did to their homeworld might convince Pandora's consciousness that helping them would be in the best interest of life itself. Quaritch and the RDA forces move in on the Tree of Souls, and the epic final battle from the hit 2009 film Avatar ensues. It's sick! There are mech suits, alien pterodactyls, futuristic helicopters, Jake's flying around in what's basically a dragon, and Quaritch is flying around in what's canonically called a dragon. For the viewer, it's a great time. For the Na'vi, less so. During the battle, Trudy's aircraft is destroyed with her on board, Norm's avatar takes a debilitating wound, though Norm's human body is physically unharmed, and Sute seemingly plummets to his death. Just when things are at their bleakest, Eywa's cavalry arrives in the form of Pandora's most threatening wildlife, which decimate the RDA forces. Quaritch flees a fiery death by hopping in his amp suit and happens to stumble upon the mobile lab from which Jake's human body is operating his avatar. Neytiri shows up and attacks Quaritch, he knifes her Thanator friend, and then Jake shows up. He damages the canopy of Quaritch's amp suit, exposing him to Pandora's toxic atmosphere, but Quaritch returns the favor by doing the same thing to the lab that's housing Jake's human body. Neytiri saves the day, putting 2 enormous arrows into Quaritch and a rebreather on Jake's relatively little human body, who she's just now seeing for the first time. Jake Sully, a 6-foot-tall man who in this context is also somehow a short king. After the Na'vi forces defeat the RDA, Jake and Neytiri find a severely wounded Sute, who bestows clan leadership to Jake and asks Jake to put him out of his misery. Once all the bad humans are escorted off the planet, a ceremony is held to transfer Jake's consciousness from his human body into his Na'vi body permanently with the help of Eywa, and everyone lives happily ever after. At least for the first 6 minutes of Avatar: The Way of Water. The second film explains the decade-plus time jump with a montage introducing the new Sully family. Jake and Neytiri have been staying connected, and they have 3 biological kids. There's the oldest, Neytayam, the middle kid, Loak, and the adorable little scamp, Tuk. But they also have adopted Kiri, the biological daughter of the late Dr. Grace Augustine's avatar. Though Grace's human body died in the first film, her avatar body remained comatose in a tank where the lab guys realized she was pregnant. Who her father is remains a mystery. And then there's Spider. Born on the RDA base and orphaned by the war, Spider was too young to put into cryosleep for the trip back to Earth, so instead he was raised by Norm and the rest of the lab guys, but was also inseparable from the Sully kids. Despite his rejection of human customs in favor of Na'vi ones, he's still not Na'vi, which means that he's forced to wear a rebreather mask to tolerate Pandora's atmosphere, and he's only barely tolerated by Neytiri, who still doesn't trust humans even though her husband used to be one, which may have something to do with the fact that Spider's father is Miles Quaritch.
Guys,
Sometimes it's not so great to know who your father was.
Sadly, Neytiri soon gets a whole lot more reasons not to trust humans, and in 2168, about 15 years since their defeat in the first film, RDA forces return to Pandora in greater numbers. This time, they take a scorched earth approach and immolate huge swaths of Pandoran flora and fauna with their ship's plasma engines. A year after that, something even worse shows up on Pandora. Miles Quaritch, bigger, badder, and bluer than ever thanks to a new recombinant Na'vi hybrid body courtesy of Project Phoenix, the RDA's more militaristic answer to the science team's Avatar program. Except rather than controlling a Na'vi body remotely, this is running directly off a backup of all of Quaritch's personality and memories.
A Marine can't be defeated. Oh, you can kill us, but we'll just regroup in hell.
The backup was made 2 hours before his death, so he doesn't remember exactly how he died, but he has a hunch that Jake Sully was probably involved. And so that's enough reason to make killing Jake Sully his squad's primary mission. Remember kids, save your games often so you too can be the villain of multiple Avatar films, even if you die in the first one. Jake, meanwhile, has been waging guerrilla warfare on RDA supply lines. During one of these runs, Loak and Neytiri disobey Jake's orders, and Neytiri gets injured in the process, prompting some tough love for the two from Jake, who struggles not to run his family like a squad of Marines.
What are you doing here, boy? What the hell were you thinking?
General Francis Ardmore, SecOps commanding officer, informs Quaritch and company they were brought back as Na'vi recoms rather than straight human clones to test the theory that Pandora's wildlife wouldn't be as aggressive toward them as it is toward alien biology, i.e. humans. Quaritch heads out into Jake's turf to test this theory, and while exploring the jungle, he's spotted by the younger Sully kids as well as Spider. They call and tell their dad, but are soon thereafter captured. Quaritch realizes from their fingers and the gestures they make with them that they're half human, and also that Spider is in fact his own flesh and blood. Well, his former body's flesh and blood. Speaking of which, Quaritch shortly thereafter comes across his own remains and video proof that Jake and Neytiri were in fact the ones responsible for his death. Jake and Neytiri arrive to save their kids, but Quaritch and his squad escape with Spider in tow. Back at the RDA base, Ardmore and Quaritch play good cop, bad cop, with the former subjecting him to mental torture in an effort to gain intel, and the latter trying the more fatherly angle.
I thought you might want this.
Meanwhile, Jake convinces Neytiri they need to pack up the whole family and move somewhere Quaritch won't find them to protect not just them, but the entire Unobtanium clan. Jake steps down as their leader, and the whole family leaves on their Ikran, touching down in the village of the Metkayina clan. Tonawari, the clan chief, and his wife Renal begrudgingly allow them to stay. The Sullys learn the ways of the Metkayina, including learning to ride aquatic creatures as well as they ride Ikran, how to communicate underwater with sign language, and most importantly, the way of water, which is not just a spiritual ideology, but a crucial part of the Metkayina's technique to holding their breath for long periods of time. Some of the local kids pick on Kitty for being half human, and also weird in other ways. Loak and Neytiri come to her defense and wind up in a fist fight, which isn't a great look when one of the kids they wind up punching in the face is Aonung, the son of the clan's elders. Jake sends Loak to apologize, and Aonung and his bros invite the impressionable teen to go fishing outside the reef, but as a prank they decide to leave him there to get chased down by a hungry akula. Luckily, there's always a bigger fish, and Loak is saved by a great whale-like tulkun. These are creatures that the Metkayina create deep, lifelong bonds with, much as the Unobtanium do with Ikran. Loak helps remove a harpoon from this tulkun's fin, and it helps him back to shore. Later, the local kids explain that this particular tulkun is Payakan, who is an outcast from the rest of the herd for committing murder.
They say he is a killer.
No, he killed Na'vi and other tulkun.
This whole time, Kitty's been feeling an unusual connection to Awa, which gets even more intense when she connects to the spirit tree, communes with the memory of her dead mother, and then has a seizure that causes all the bioluminescent creatures in her immediate vicinity to short circuit. Jake calls his scientist pals from the Avatar program who fly out and diagnose Kitty with epilepsy. Unfortunately, their remote house call catches the attention of Quaritch. He commandeers a whaling vessel and goes in search of Sully with the help of the ship's captain, Mick Scoresby, and Dr. Ian Garvin, a marine biologist who's trying to study Tulkun before Scoresby kills them all.
I'll be nice once, then I won't.
Meanwhile, Loak gets close with Soraya, the daughter of the Metkayina elders and sister to Aonung, and somehow even closer with Payakan. He learns what Payakan did to get him exiled. After whalers killed his mother, he gathered a group of other young Tulkun and their Na'vi counterparts and led an attack on the whalers, all of whom were promptly slaughtered by the humans. Soraya explains that the Tulkun are staunch pacifists and they see Payakan as being responsible for all of these deaths, thus the exile.
Killing, no matter how justified, only brings more killing.
On land, Quaritch terrorizes the Na'vi for information about Sully's location, and by sea, Scoresby terrorizes the Tulkun, or rather brutally murders them for something even more valuable, Amrita, a substance found in their brains that fetches a high price back on Earth because it can stop human aging completely. So basically, it's the new Unobtanium.
So that's what this is all about.
That's it. Amrita.
The Metkayina get wind of the Tulkun's slaughter and are ready to go to war over it, but Jake warns against it, knowing the RDA forces will likely overwhelm them, and suggests that if they want to help their Tulkun brethren, they need to make sure they don't get hit by tracking beacons, since that's how Scoresby hunts them. Loak learns that Payakan has been hit by one of these beacons and races off to help him remove it. His siblings, along with Aunung and Soraya, chase after him to help, but are captured by Quaritch, who holds Neteyam at gunpoint, threatening to shoot if Jake doesn't surrender. But Payakan saves the day. And at this point, the epic final battle scene from the hit 2022 film Avatar: The Way of Water ensues, and a bunch of awesome stuff happens. The kids escape the ship, and Kitty uses her unusual connection to Eywa to make giant sea anemones smash a submarine. Meanwhile, Payakan rips off Scoresby's arm with a harpoon cable, which is poetic justice for Scoresby taking one of his fins. Loak and Neteyam are reunited with Spider, but while escaping the ship, Neteyam is shot. They get back to their parents, but not in time to save Neteyam. He dies in their arms. Because losing their eldest son wasn't bad enough, Quaritch calls to inform Jake that he's got Kitty and Took, who Loak was supposed to be watching. Spider, who's been hanging out on the ship for quite a while, offers to show Jake and Neytiri how to get in safely. Jake and Neytiri tear through Quaritch's goons, with Neytiri in particular really pushing the boundaries of a PG-13 rating and scaring the shit out of Spider in the process. Jake saves Took, but Quaritch holds Kitty at knife point, at which point Neytiri does the same to Spider.
Release, or I got.
Quaritch, who seems visibly shocked at the feelings that he's caught for this kid, relents, and Jake fights with him while the rest of the family escapes, or rather they would have if they didn't get sucked into the capsizing ship. At this point, the sinking ship sequence from the hit 1997 film Titanic ensues, except it plays out a little bit differently and nobody dies off a floating door. Jake, Quaritch, Neytiri, and Took all wind up trapped in various parts of the ship in various states of consciousness. Loak rescues his dad with the help of his whale criminal pal. Kitty uses her special connection with Eywa to leave a trail of bioluminescent breadcrumbs to show Neytiri and Took the way out. And though Jake knocked Quaritch out and left him for dead, Spider drags him to dry land, but rejects his biological father in favor of his adopted one, who welcomes him with open arms. Upon returning to the village, Neteyam's body is returned to Eywa by way of the spirit tree. Jake tells Tonowari and Ronal that his family will be moving on and leaving them in peace, but the chief protests and says that since Neteyam has been laid to rest with Metkayina ancestors, the Sullys are Metkayina forever. In the final scenes, Jake and Neytiri connect to the spirit tree and revisit their memories of Neteyam at different points in his life, and proving that the real way of water is for it to come leaking out of the eyes of every single parent in the audience during this scene. So going into Avatar: Fire and Ash, here are the important things to know. Jake and Sully have lost a son in Neteyam, but gained another with Spider. But also, Neytiri just held Spider at knife point, so that might be a little awkward. Quaritch is still alive, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say that he's definitely not done trying to kill Jake. Meanwhile, the two big questions are this: who is Kitty's father, and why does she have Aquaman's superpowers? Oh, and one final thing to keep in mind is the Na'vi word they keep calling each other.
Neytiri calls me scoundrel. It means moron.
James Cameron has plans for Avatar 4 and 5, and Disney has them slated for 2029 and 2031 releases, but they're not guaranteed, and Cameron has said that when taken together, The Way of Water and Fire and Ash will tell a complete story. You can see for yourself how it all shakes out when it hits theaters December 19th, but for now, I see you, and I'll see you later.